Hello, welcome to Calls with Your Kinky Bestie. I'm Emma. I am a submissive and mentor for fellow Kinksters. This podcast is all about insights into kinky life and dating, sharing my personal experience and stories, and help share mindset shifts too to get you into a confident space, more confident than you are now. So get ready. It all starts now.
Hey, bestie. Let's talk about how to date when things take you a while to process. Now, I'm coming at this from the lens of a neurodivergent person. I have ADHD. I have some, social lack of awareness. It just takes me a long time to really figure out what was said sometimes. I'm a pretty literal person. So a lot of the social things, especially with dating where you're trying to read between the lines, can be tricky. So this is the episode for you if you are that way too. I'm going to tell you my thoughts on this. And before anything else happens, I want to tell you the reason why I thought of this topic and just kind of what came up for me. So before my Dom, now my amazing partner, I had this weird dating thing going with this guy for a long time, for multiple years. He was in my life. There was a period of time where we were kind of dating. Like we would go on dates, we would fuck, we would talk about relationship stuff. I don't even think that period lasted a full year. And then there was a period of time kind of like before and after that where we weren't really going on dates or doing a lot of stuff, but we were, hookup-y people. And it was just, for me, it was I was going through some trauma stuff. It just kind of made sense and was there were some lessons there that I needed to work through. But because it was definitely a learning and growing type of relationship rather than a universe just giving me the answer kind of relationship, there was a lot of reflection and introspection there. And I think there is with a lot of dating situations. But the reason this episode came up is that I have man diaries. I 100% do. I have this crazy, it's not a notes app. I'm going to tell you what I use. Because for me, the notes app, I don't want to, this is kind of private stuff. I don't want this just on my normal notes app on my phone. So if you know about Wattpad, it's it's an app, but it's also a website where a lot of amateur just people who like to write things will just post their stories and just share it everywhere digitally, that way. So it's not for published books as far as I'm aware. It's definitely more for amateur stuff. There's some great literotica on there if you're interested, but it has this great feature where you can write your own stories, but you don't have to publish them. So I have all these unpublished stories that are just my personal diaries, basically, because then you can sort it into different types of books. So I'd have a different man diary for every different person I had dated, and then different chapters for the days I wanted to document and stuff. And I know this sounds a little weird, but for me, I like this because it's easier to be on your phone sometimes than to physically write something out. Because, what if, God forbid, you lose your journal? Or just, what if you don't want to turn on the fucking light? You just want to be laying in bed. So it's really nice that you can just type away on your phone instead. And also it's searchable. Then it's easier to scan through if you want to go to specific days. Or just remind yourself of certain events that happen. You can find it a little bit more easily than you might be able to on a handwritten journal, But don't get me wrong, I have my fair share of handwritten man notes as well. But, to my point, those get lost. It's been a while. So I like this digital version where I can keep it and reflect back on it. But I have this crazy man diary for this guy, right? Because this happened over multiple years. So it's, oh my God, fucking 72 parts, which I know sounds crazy, but some of the parts aren't like super long or anything. It would just be like okay, here's the date, here's kind of what happened and what I'm thinking. And sometimes I would write things even whenever like we hadn't spent time together, but just whenever I had like a thought or like a therapy session or whatever and just wanted to process things, then I would document that there. And not everything in this was specifically about this guy and exactly what our situation was and things he had said and whatever. Like some of my chapters would just be I would hear a podcast episode and have a mindset shift and wanted to journal it through, and it kind of came up around this person, so I would then just throw it in there because it made sense. But yeah, what's been so fucking awesome about this is that, especially if you are so twofold, it gives you an opportunity to process if you're a neurodivergent person who needs to process things for a long time or like externally. So I think at this time, like I had a therapist and I had friends that I was able to talk about this with, but I really need time to process and space to process. And then, sometimes even if I would process some of it with a friend, then other things would come through later that I would want to process. So, dating, there's a lot of like really painful lessons you go through. It's really like ouchy time, and there can be so much growth and transformation, personal development within dating. It's kind of an awesome tool for that. But anyways, like sometimes just like talking through it with another person isn't enough, or it would feel like too much of a burden to like really just keep spewing everything I wanted to say about this person, and that's not really anyone else's job to fully listen to. Like my therapist has other patients, she can't be talking to me 10 hours a week. And also I think there's also a time and space for like things that you process on your own as well. And just talk yourself through a situation and see what comes up. Like that's another skill that you learn, right? That's helpful for you in life. So fucking anyways, I know I sound crazy with my 72 part stories, but what's so nice about this is it's an opportunity to process, but it's also like if you are neurodivergent and have memory issues or just have memory issues, like for me, it's a part of my ADHD where I can remember certain things that are interesting to me, like within the last, few months or so, with pretty high detail. I can have a pretty high recall there. But if something's years out, forget about it. You're gonna have to be the one to remind me. I'm not gonna be able to come up with that on my own most of the time. So if you're going through dating situations and you're with a person long term, or just like you're going through a lot of growth and change, it's really nice to then be able to actually reflect on like what the lessons are that I had with this person. And it's also a great like then this check mark not check mark, like checkpoint maybe is the word, maybe that's not the word, but just like it's really nice being able to reflect on these diaries that I'd written out to myself years ago and just read them and go like, whoa, holy shit, I have grown so much. I'm so, grateful to this person for this situation, to myself for doing this work, because now I'm in this different place that's a lot more comfortable and healthy. So I don't even remember how I started this episode, but that's basically what I wanted to share. Is I know seems like a wild fucking concept, and you're like, oh my god, Emma, shut the fuck up. But journaling, holy shit, it's so helpful if you have memory recall issues, or just like you need to process shit externally. Like I fucking get that. I get that hard. A little sip of water. So maybe now's a good time to take a little breaky. We'll come back and talk about it more. But yeah, stay tuned because I got other things to say. I've got other ways that you can do this, and we're going to talk about more than just journaling. So chat soon.
Just a little break to share that if you are loving this podcast and my content, if I'm someone you could see yourself working with, but you're wanting more direct support for your specific situation, I do offer mentorship. It's personalized to you, private video or phone calls with me, so you can chat about your situation and figure out a solution that's going to work for you. You can visit my website. It is kinkybestie.com/mentorships to see what's available and to book in your spot on my calendar. It's kinky with a Y at the end and bestie with an IE at the end. The link will be in the show notes, so you can check it out there. Back to the show.
Okay, we are back. We are talking about external processing. If you are neurodivergent as fuck. Okay, so I got really personal and shared with you my crazy man diaries. Oh my god, and that's just for one person. I have other notes in other places. It gets a little, there's a lot of lessons in dating, okay? But I've heard other ways that people do this too. Like some people, there was this video, I don't know if it's still trending, where this girl shared that like whenever she was like in an ouchy situation, like going through a heartbreaking moment, she would take a video of herself talking herself through it basically, while she's like sobbing in her car, just like talk about like what's going on and how she's feeling, which is basically the same as, journaling, but it just without the actual journaling. If you prefer to just speak and that's going to be easier for you, maybe you just like record audio notes to yourself. Like there's so many ways to do it, but if you're an external processor, do it. And if you can record it, that's great for reflecting later if memory issues are a thing, or just, yeah, you want to be able to reflect on yourself later. But, it's not always what you need. I used to have a lot of just like I would take a long bath and just think myself through a situation and just sing. And sometimes I wasn't even like cognitively processing, like I wasn't putting it into words or talking it through, but sometimes I would just like make time to sit with the feelings I was feeling and like physically soothe myself through the feelings. So like I would take a hot bath and like hug myself or like comfort myself or like, let myself cry and like calm down and wind down. Because that's a part of processing too, is the literal like physical state that you get into. And then the other thing I wanted to share here, because I think it's relevant, and I haven't talked about it in a while, but introspection tools or like divination tools. If you're someone who, like, okay, you need to process, but maybe journaling isn't exciting or interesting enough for you, or, I think this can also be really helpful if you're someone who just needs like an external prompt. Like, if you have a hard time, if you feel the feelings, but you have a hard time just like starting somewhere, I think, certain introspective tools that give you, or even like journaling prompts that like give you like a starting point or something to answer and respond to can be so fucking helpful. So it's up to you how that feels good. And this has been honestly like a really fun area for myself to explore and try different things. I think one of my favorite tools for this is oracle cards. If you are interested in tarot, you can do that as well. I don't think it's this, scary, evil thing. I think there are a lot of like beautiful modern decks that make it simpler. And what I prefer about oracle, if you're a little hesitant to tarot, but you're like, and granted, tarot is a lot to learn. And a spoiler alert, you don't have to like memorize the meanings of all the tarot cards. Um, that's more for people who like do professional readings for other people just because it's going to be faster if they already know the answers. But, I'm sure that there are tarot readers who don't even have all the cards memorized and will just like be looking up the things as they go, which I think is totally valid. Like it's a lot of fucking cards to learn. It's like 72 cards or something. So even if, you're scared about like that or just like anxious or demotivated by the idea of memorizing 72 cards. It's also just a lot to learn, even without memorizing, to like look up the meaning of 72 different cards and just knowing that they're all different things. So it's like expansive language, but also it's a lot, so it can take longer to work through. And it's a little bit I don't know, it's a little bit more rigid, which like can be nice or not, depending on what you need. But oracle cards are less based on that system, and they don't have to be 72 cards deep as a deck. So I think the oracle card deck I have, let me see how many cards it is actually, because I don't know. But Oracle, if you don't know, it's not based on, like, there's not a numbering system. There's not like suites or anything. Or I guess suits. Oh my gosh, there's not suits. And it's more like at the author's discretion to do whatever they want with it. So, like, I have the tech I have, there's cards that just say no. There's cards that say yes. And there's also a lot of cards that are, um, giving you an action to take or giving you some sort of prompt or just like a theme. So there's a lot more room for interpretation and it feels a lot more approachable. And also because every deck is generally different, there's not. So for tarot, because there's a set system, sometimes there's this like discourse between people about what different cards mean. And sometimes people will tell you like you're wrong for perceiving a card a certain way, which whatever, maybe you are, but like the point of it is just to introspect, right? And just to learn. So I like, and I think this is a small thing, but I like that with oracle cards, there's none of that. Every deck is its own thing. So you really get to make of it what you want and what's helpful for you in the moment. So those are really helpful tools. I know there are other things out there. I know some people like read runes or palms or, of course, like numerology or human design or astrology can just be like interesting things to dive through or to, dive into as well. Like I'm sure horoscopes could be very helpful if you're like going through something, look up like, oh, what's my horoscope for the day? What's going on? And then use that as the lens to then like reflect back to your current situation. I think that can be super fucking helpful. But it's really up to you. And like none of these things is right or wrong. But if something's interesting to you, it can be a great way to introspect and just a tool to help you figure shit out and like process stuff, right? Like that's the way I see it. And I also, what I like about cards and just like tools like this that feel like a little otherworldly, it lets me tap more into like my intuition and my like inner knowing rather than just logical concepts like staring at facts or talking, like things through with a therapist. It's just different. So I really like sometimes just being able to pull a card and from the way I'm interpreting it, I learn about myself and how I feel, Lets me like feel my feelings a little bit more and be a little bit more aware of them. Yeah, yeah, it's really lovely. And it makes it less, clinical and more fun. And also, yeah, if you are just like totally bored by the idea of journaling, well, can you get behind the idea of like learning a new skill? Can you get behind the idea of like supporting a cool artist and like learning how they think and, you know, it's just like it can be a different way to motivate you if you're having a hard time doing it on your own. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share today was just my crazy man diaries and how helpful that was for me in my dating journey. Now with my partner, there's not much to process because there's no drama. So I don't think I even have a man diaries for him. It's more like intertwined with my own diaries of like stuff that I'm going through in ways that I'm trying to up level. I'll throw in like, you know, affirmations based on just like how he's treating me and how well things are going. It's more so within this relationship about like acclimating to how good it is. And it's also like we're so now that I know that I'm neurodivergent and I feel like he's truly one of the only people that I can like unmask with, I feel comfortable in that. Like I'm able to process things with him directly combined with the fact that there's not a whole lot to process because everything just feels simple and straightforward and like we're on the same page, which is so fucking lovely and I highly recommend. So if you are kinky dating and that's your thing, I have a course on this. It's called the Kinky Dating Kickoff. You can get it on my website. And yeah, I'll chat with you in the next lovely episode, dear one. I hope you have an amazing evening or day or wherever you are. Okay. All right, bye.
Thank you so much for joining me this episode. You can follow the podcast on the platform where you're listening to get updates with new episodes. You can follow me on social media at Kinky Bestie. I'm on Instagram. You can also check the show notes for any links or resources that I talked about in this episode or just more ways to connect with me. And please share this with your kinky friends who could benefit from this type of content. There is also an option for each podcast episode to engage with Q&As or polls. So I'd love to hear from you and create future episodes around what you want to chime in with. So please check those out in the show notes too. And I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.